Hey, welcome to Skeptic Hangout, the place where we sit back, relax, and chit chat about the intriguing and sometimes controversial subjects through the lens of skepticism. We are Josh, Richard, and returning once again, guest host Nate. Today, we're going to find out if the Kingsman films really knew what they were talking about. So, throw back some coffee, ginger ale, or tequila shots as we talk manners. I hope it was evident. Manners maketh man from Kingsman, what I was referencing in there.
I literally watched that film yesterday.
It's
And I had no idea it was going to come up today, but wow, that is
now
some serendipitous shit right
I
there.
was going to say we need to do an episode on serendipity now.
Right?
So manners. Does anybody want to start off on this? Does anybody care about manners? I interrupted you. Fuck you, Nate, but you can start if you want.
Oh, sorry. I'm a
Yeah,
Canadian, so it's my job.
and I'm being the rude American, so I'm doing
Yeah,
my job.
right?
And Richard's sitting there quietly, which I assume is an English thing. So you got it all down.
I feel like Richard and I both come from countries that are known for folks having good manners. And then we've got Josh, who literally comes from a country that's like dead last on the manners list.
I'm sure somebody's worse than us.
Uh,
We,
I,
we,
I,
we don't make it
I
part of our identity at all. I definitely I think it's weird that people use manners here as almost a weapon, or like politeness is more of a weapon, which politeness goes hand in hand with manners to me. And that the people that are talking the nicest to you are genuinely assholes. Like the more proper and uptight you are, the more I can count on the fact that you're probably an evil motherfucker that I don't want to be hanging out with. People that talk like me, that use poor grammar and shit like that and a lot of swear words, they generally end up being nicer people. I think I'm the nicest person that I know. And just like the people that focus on the manners, they're always like stabbing social rights groups in the back. So like they're doing it real nicely, like, oh, bless your heart, you're such a sweet little person. I'm gonna take your rights away though. And then I don't know why I went into that accent because that was not American.
You have to put on an accent other than your own to portray your own people.
I just drifted into it. It was a little bit of Ebenezer Doubtfire, but not that time. But it's almost a weapon. It's weaponized. So like people say, I'm being polite. Why are you being so rude to me when all that you're asking for your rights in like the rudest possible fucking way? And that's how I see like people that focus on manners more than they focus on actions seems to be the way America goes.
Let's kind of define what manners, or what we think manners are then, because I know Josh quite well, and I know quite a lot of Americans who I've met through the internet and in real life, and I've never found them not to have manners. People always say thank you. They'll say please if they want something. It's not kind of, and that's kind of the archetypal in Britain. That's please and thank you is the archetype of having manners. So, and I've never encountered particularly people who in America who don't say that, or particularly put on a front or a false about it. I think maybe what Josh is talking about is the general mannerisms of people rather than particularly manners as I'd view it here.
Well, manners is like, don't I see like a lot of people are like, respect your elders and like, don't burp at the table. Don't burp at the table is probably fine. I don't abide by that, but like respect your elders is having good manners. And a lot of my elders, not everybody, because I know I come off ageist like every single episode. It's not my intent, but so many of my elders are terrible people because they don't deserve good manners. They don't deserve respect. So like I see manners as just like a way of controlling people's way of getting themselves across, and that is something that actually displays whether or not they're good people.
As far as I'm concerned, respect your elders can go right at the fucking window. Because for me, manners is giving folks the benefit of the doubt, treating people the way that you would want to be treated, and avoiding nasty confrontations if it's possible. None of those things have anything to do with respecting your elders, right? Like, if you're going to be nice to grandma, it's because she's been nice to you in the past, and that's just a human altruistic instinct, I think, because that's what makes us successful as a species. So that's what manners mean to me. It has nothing to do with etiquette or the stupid rules or salad forks. It has nothing to do with that.
Well, just looking it up on the in the dictionary.com, manners is a way in which thing is done or happens, which kind of goes in with like which salad fork are you going to use, or which fork are you going to use for your salad at the dinner table, which is bullshit stuff that's just culturally whatever. And then a person's outward bearing or way of behaving towards others. Like, I'd say that what I'm talking about, it's almost culturally. And I don't think what was talking about wasn't manners. It's just, but it's what our culture instills as manners. And I see a lot of politeness and manners being used as a way to overtalk people that maybe are in less privileged positions. Maybe they weren't able to get as educated as other people were, and they weren't raised in a society where they can focus on those kinds of things. And that's okay. I have no problem with bad manners in that situation, but like there are certain things that, like, yeah, taboo, the burping farting at the table maybe shouldn't be done, that kind of thing I'm okay with. But like if it's just like because society says so and you're not thinking through the reasons for these rules, that's where I have a problem with it, because so many of the problems with manners are that it's strictly inherited from older generations.
And some of that makes sense, right? If you're going to respect your elders because they have experience and because, hey, don't go down to that river because there's a pack of lions there, that makes sense on a evolutionary level. But respect Uncle Frank as he talks about why Donald Trump was the greatest president ever. That's a completely different thing. So I think you're right that we need to sort of get back to the motivations of the rule and sort of the spirit of the law, if you will, if I could quote a legal term there. And absolutely. And before we move on, I need to address the elephant in the room. Okay, I'm Canadian. We're known for being polite. We're known for saying sorry. Okay, we are not a super apologetic people. Okay, this may floor all of your viewers, but Canadians say sorry instead of excuse me. That's what it is. It's not that we're constantly apologizing to each other. It's just that those two phrases in Canada are interchangeable. Whereas in the States, you don't get people apologizing when they like walk behind you in a supermarket, for example, right? It's just an interchangeable term for excuse me. That's all it is. We're not actually sorry that we're walking behind you at the Piggly Wiggly. Okay?
Yeah, I think over in America, if you accidentally bump somebody when you're in a supermarket, they'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna make you sorry." But that's about as close as we come to that interaction.
Even in California? Come on.
I just said America. I'm not saying California. I've visited other states.
Okay, so another hot take I have for you, Josh. I've been to many states. I've been mostly in the South, but mostly in the South and right around like Ontario, so like Michigan, New York, Maine, like those states there. And I got to tell you, um, folks from the North were far ruder. Folks from the South were super polite and kind. Now they didn't know I was gay, so I'm guessing that probably would have changed things. But my experience with folks in the South, they were super kind people. I also worked for a call center, and we used to take calls from folks in the States exclusively. Worked for Chrysler in a Chrysler call center, and we had like a running thing going about like who are the nicest people and who are the worst people. And I'm going to give you both a guess. Who do you both think? What's your guess for the nicest people? The state with the nicest people?
I'm gonna guess you're just by your tone that it was. I'm gonna say Alabama.
Close. Richard?
You know what? You're not going to believe this talking about serendipity, but that is exactly what I was going to say as well.
I was just trying to think of a
Really?
Leonard Skinner type.
Yes, I was going to say Alabama too.
I was thinking of a
Wow.
Leonard Skinner state.
Wow,
Somebody
what-
that would mostly go red.
It was Texas.
Well, that's exactly what I was talking about. They use politeness and manners as a weapon almost. Like they absolutely come across on the surface like the nicest people ever, while they're voting away gay rights and voting away CRT and trans medical stuff. So like, yeah, they can say like, how do you do? And all that kind of crap, but they're still doing horrible things.
Fair point. Fair point. Okay. Next one then. Who?
Quiz
What's-
time with Nate.
Right? Well, I'm curious to hear because like I worked in a few call centers, talked to a lot of different a lot of folks from all over North America and the world. But okay, worst state to get a call from. Take a guess.
New York.
California.
Nope.
Really?
Nope.
Because I worked customer service in California and I've met a lot of a-holes, a
That-
lot of
I
entitled
mean-
people.
Yeah,
Like-
California's like top 5.
We vote left, but we got a lot of entitled people. I think it's because we got the movie star syndrome out here. Like, I'm gonna be
Could be.
famous and rich someday. You gotta at least respect me. So like, there's that going on. Not what's something else. That's
Richard, I'll give you a hint. It's one of the original 13.
They got rid of us. I don't know what. What the original.
Hey,
just out with it.
it's only treason
rid
if
us
you
out.
lose.
Just out
I
with
don't
it,
know.
Nate.
My initial
Jersey,
guess.
New Jersey.
was Jersey, right? Okay.
Well,
so
that's like a
not too
running-
far from New York then.
That's like a running joke that New Jersey is terrible.
People from New Jersey was so excruciatingly rude to talk to. Oh my. It was every time I saw that pop up, I was like, oh, here we go again.
How much stock do you put in manners, Richard? I feel like me and Nate have been talking back and forth about what do you care about manners?
I like manners. I like people to be kind of. I don't know whether respectful's the right word, but just to care a little bit about the fellow man, genuinely, not as a kind of front like you were talking about, but genuinely, I'll say please and thank you, and hold the door open for people, not just women. I'll hold the door open for anyone, and I think it's just for me, it's just kind of innate. I don't know whether it's the way I was brought up or the culture or what, or whether it's just me, but I just like doing nice things to people and letting them know I appreciate them.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's kind of like what I was saying, is it's the altruistic nature of human social behavior.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not always rooted in altruism, which is why I take some issue. I'm not saying manners in general are bad, although I definitely kind of said that. But I'm just saying that it needs to be evaluated by case basis. Like there are people, let's go into like the incel crowd that use manners almost as like as a transactionary kind of thing, or like Richard mentioned opening the door for more than just women, but like an incel type person may open that door and like be upset that their knob isn't getting off right after they get it let through that door. Like they were owed a blowjob for doing the great feat of opening up that door. Like people that use it transactionally, that's where another thing manners can get in people's heads wrong. People that use it for purposes.
I was just going to say
you're the guest.
it's far more noble to be kind with no expectation of reward, and we as secular folks understand that because we know there's no great party in the sky when it's all over. So it truly is for us. It truly is just being kind to other people. We're not expecting anything for it.
No, and I was going to say on what Josh said as well, because there is we still have, although it's kind of dissipating somewhat, we do still have a class system in Britain, and polls in Britain have kind of shown that people from the north, which is traditionally the poorer part of the country, are more polite than people from the south. However, when it comes to manners specifically, not putting your elbows on your table, not eating with your mouth open, all that kind of thing, it's the people, the more affluent people are kind of brought up in that as it being the correct thing to do. So I think there is some kind of crossover with manners and politeness that may not necessarily go hand in hand with each other. I think manners can be something which is more ingrained culturally into you, whereas politeness is. I don't know why I'm not using these words exclusively, but politeness for me is more that kind of thank you, please, opening the door for someone, just your general like altruistic mannerisms to your fellow human, rather than it being taught as a thing which you should be done because it is the right thing to do.
I think there's some crossover between the two, but like there definitely are manners that are just, there's nothing polite about it or like kind about like not putting your elbows on the table. I don't give a fuck about that rule. I want to get as much chicken in my mouth as possible, and sometimes I need that leverage. So like that's a dumb rule, doesn't make sense.
That's the only time I was ever reprimanded for my manners, by the way. I was on an RAF base, and I was sat on the table at breakfast we'd been in the canteen, and I was sat with my elbows on the table eating my breakfast, and a warrant officer from another table actually came over and had a word with me about it because I was being impolite.
And that's a dumb arbitrary rule. Like the dumb arbitrary rules are where it doesn't matter to me. But like if I was I can't think of a nice thing to do for somebody, I guess that makes me a bad person. But if I were to do insert nice thing here because I genuinely want to be a nice person to somebody and not expect anything back, that would be good manners. I'd have no
I'm going to argue with Josh a minute here because and advertise the Bloody Good Film Podcast, because I got sent a load of merchandise from the Bloody Good Film Podcast, and I wasn't charged a penny for it. So I dispute that you don't do nice things for people.
That's because I knew you'd put it on this podcast and advertise it. So we just got one other person we got one other person that's thinking about buying it, but it's going to forget about it later. But that's close to money in our pockets.
Hey, I'll dispute that. I never got a cup. I've been volunteering for the ACA for 2 years, and all I got was this fucking mug.
I didn't even get that.
Oh, Josh, come on! You're not telling me you didn't get your nice little.
No, I'm almost positive that my I'm sure somebody made one, and I'm sure that it got stolen off my porch is what happens because porch pirates out here. Which porch pirates? That's pretty fucking rude, stealing other people's mail. That's bad manners right there.
Yeah.
And what Richard and I just did by flexing with our ACA coasters, that was pretty shitty manners too.
Yeah, I
say it.
Come from the polite Britain Canadian.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that I've been doing that longer than Richard has by like a week.
Yeah, this is true as well. He's far more deserving than I am.
I'll talk to Greg for you, Josh.
It's not really a problem. I'll have it stolen off the porch again, I'm sure. But what else do we think of when we think of manners? Is there anything else that's important about it, or is this just like, yeah, some people have manners and they use it to disguise being dicks. Some people have horrible manners, but they're fucking Jimmy Stewart out in the world.
I think general manners are important. I try and teach my kid manners and kids. I've got two of them. I don't know where the other one went briefly. Then I try and teach my children manners and to be polite. And my children have Nate's got kids, and I don't know whether he'll be able to add on to this. My two children have got completely different temperaments, and I've got one who will go out of their way to be polite to people. And one who has Johnny Angel gave me a phone call the other day, and it turned into a bit of a video chat. And I said to my daughter, "Say hello to Johnny," and she was literally like, "No." No. And then my son heard the phone call from upstairs. He came running downstairs and he was sat waving and saying hello and asking lots of questions about the US and things. So it's even within families, when you kind of bring them up the same, they can be different, like, characteristics of the people that go into politeness and things.
But was that necessarily bad manners? Because maybe you putting your kid on the spot when they're maybe a little shy, maybe a little bit uncomfortable about talking to somebody on
Maybe
camera
it was
that they
bad
don't
manners
know.
by me.
That's what I was gonna get at.
That's what he's saying. Yeah.
So like,
how dare you?
Because you got to take into consideration kids, and I'm saying this is the only person without kids, but kids are still like growing into who they're going to be. I'd say like when they don't talk to you, it's not necessarily them being rude, it's them being awkward. And that needs to be taken into consideration from people who should fucking know better, Richard.
No, my daughter is rude. In general, it wasn't just to Johnny.
And kids too, they haven't developed the filter that adults have, and that's what kind of makes them so entertaining, and you know, they can be perceived as rude, but really they're just saying what we're all thinking.
Well, technically saying what you're thinking is sometimes rude. Like, and this is something that I was hoping we get to your kids on, but like kids will see like somebody that's a little overweight and they'll go like, "Mom, Dad, why is that person so fat?" And they'll say it within earshot. That's definitely rude, but it could be excused from ignorance. So that's where I'd say like, yeah, those are the manners that you want to teach. You also want to teach, and I know way too many adults that haven't learned this yet, never ever ask a woman how far along she is in her pregnancy. Unless she brings it up, you don't say anything, because the amount of women I know that have had somebody say that and they were not pregnant is way too damn high.
Yeah, that happened to my wife.
Oh God.
Yeah, so, that was one of my work functions as well. So I was in a really awkward position of not kind of causing trouble at work and trying to like stick up for. I mean, I don't need to stick up for my wife; she can do it herself.
I'm sure she slapped that person silly.
You teach her some I think I had moves? To stop her slapping that person silly. Nate.
Oh, I was just gonna. Speaking of children without filters, I was on a bus once with my oldest child. She was about maybe 4 or 5 at the time, and she points at someone on the bus who was like black, like Ethiopian black, like very, very dark skinned. And I think it was possibly her first time seeing a black person, and she points at him like right across the bus and she says, "Daddy, he's all dirty." Oof. And I'm like, "No, honey, he's from a different part of the world where they have different colored skin." And I'm just like, I'm looking at the guy, I'm like,
for audio listeners, Nathan was mouthing how sorry he was, and
yes, I was mouthing the words, "I'm so sorry." Oh my God.
It is strange though, because my daughter has done.
He thought it was funny.
Similar thing with black people, but we have a black member of our family, and she absolutely loves to bits. So it's not like it was the first time she's ever seen a black person. And we were out walking one day and we saw a black guy, and she did a similar thing. And I was like confounded, because I was like, you literally have a black member of your own family who you spend a lot of time with, and yet you're still making these remarks. And surely you should know a little. I mean, she's 6, so it's like, you know, borderline. But
well, that brings up an interesting dynamic, like in-group versus out-group manners. Like I find that I have a very different set of manners professionally than I have personally, than I have familially. I treat my family different than I treat my coworkers, than I treat general people on the street. And it's generally like family, coworkers, people on the street are like dead last. I think I'm fairly congenial to all three, but it's an odd dynamic, because with family, like, you're gonna be kinder initially, but when they break down the barriers, it can get nasty real fast.
Yeah.
And then with coworkers, it could be the same thing, but because you're on a professional level, you're required to maintain some sort of, I don't know, decorum, dignity kind of thing.
Which is sometimes difficult.
I'd say you gotta be most polite to the people that you really don't know. And
That's what I was
not
gonna say. Yeah, the gap is the smallest with the people that you don't know, between like how you actually act and how far you're willing to drop quickly.
and like when you're getting to know somebody, you're constantly like trying to figure out where their line is and how far you can go into your rude personality. Because my family, I treat them like dirt. Like
Right.
but they've grown up with me. But I have a lot of friends because I treat my friends very similar to family, and some of my friends basically are family. Uh, I have a lot of them there. I let down that screen too quickly of between friend and new person that I'm meeting. And so many of my friends now thought I hated them when I first met them, which might have been true for like a week or so, because I honestly didn't like Richard at first, and now he's one of my closest friends. But I'm very quick to like hate somebody, and I'm like, okay, they're okay. But I come off rude no matter what is as soon as I'm starting to get to know somebody, because my filter is kind of fucked up. But
It's nice that you admit that I'm one of your closest friends, because when I mention it on any show, it's usually like, no, I hate that guy.
because it's funny to leave you out to dry.
You know, when I met you, I could instantly tell you were that kind of person that just loves to be a dick to his best friends. I could instantly tell that, and I was like, we're gonna get along. We're gonna get along great.
I honestly feel terrible whenever it's like, and this is rudeness with this kind of personality happens, and sometimes it goes too far. And I've had so many friends. Shut up, acquaintance. Sometimes it goes too far, and I've had friends that started crying. I'm like, you've known me. I'm joking. I don't mean anything that's happening. But then I'll have to go like, it is definitely my bad if I cross that line. And I make sure to say I'll never cross that line ever again. And most of the time that works. I've had one friend that just cried at the drop of a hat. And I'm like starting to wonder, is it you or me at this point? Because I never take like real personal shots at my friends. It's always something superficial, but occasionally you meet people with the personalities that they can't even take the superficial ones. So you just got to bring your personality way down. I think it's definitely rude of me. It's definitely poor manners to be crossing that line, but sometimes you just like so much into your personality and it works with other people that you can't really help but have bad manners around certain people.
Is it rude though to disguise yourself and act like someone that you're not? I feel like playing the part just so that you don't offend them is somehow less rude. I feel like it's more ethical to be yourself. And if you're not gonna get along, if it's not meant to be, well then that's the breaks, man.
Can you not play a part and be yourself and just have that part be an extension?
No, Josh cannot. No, he cannot. He cannot do that.
Is respecting people's boundaries playing a part though? Like all you're doing is shutting off like the insult kind of humor. That's not necessarily being a fake. It's just like they can't take this insult humor. I'd be a jerk to keep doing this insult humor, and sometimes it slips because I'm way too used to doing it. But like I'm not friends with this person anymore, but it's not because of this. And it's just drifting. They're still great people. But she was one of the nicest people that I ever knew, this particular friend. And she was the friend that I made upset the most and felt horrible about it. So like,
yeah, I don't know. I think that's just, you're just not compatible as people.
Probably.
And I wouldn't say that makes them a bad person or me a bad person, but I'm not going to water down my humor or change the way that I act. Like, especially like I'm middle-aged, man. Like my personality is set. If you don't like me, fine. Doesn't mean I don't like you, doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just means we don't get along. But yeah, no, I would not water down my sense of humor or my cruelty, as it were. my joking cruelty just because someone couldn't take it. If they couldn't take it, then I just wouldn't be their friend. Yeah. And they wouldn't want to be mine. And that's happened a lot. Believe it or not. That's
right. I just wanted to push back on that's being a phony, because I don't think that's being a phony or playing somebody else. It's just respecting boundaries. And I'm a guy that's a jerk, but I try not to have bad manners and respect people's boundaries. So like you can be both.
That's exactly what a phony would say.
Wow. I thought that was a real nice thing you just said there, Nate. Wow, you're so clever. That was how a phony speaks.
I think I don't want to make this all about Josh, but I think Josh, I know Josh
No,
well
let's
enough
make it
to
all
know
about
that
Josh.
Yeah, he's into it. He's
if Josh knows that he has overstepped a boundary, will apologize and try and correct that behavior. And I think that shows his character rather than you shut your ears, Josh. You're not involved in this. And be nice about your shut up. I think that shows his character and that he's willing to grow and things. And despite that kind of him being himself and being kind of quite abrasive to us people, which is not a bad thing, by the way. He is willing to correct that if it goes too far with someone.
Are we still in manners now? Or are we just talking about? Oh, we did mention that manners and politeness kind of go hand in hand, and I guess this is where the politeness comes in hand. Is trying to find where people's boundaries are. So I guess we're still in the manners talk. We're just talking about
definitely.
me, and that matters a lot to me.
It's just three guys being assholes to each other on a show. That's all.
Well, the thing is me and my best friend, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well. My best friend's a lesbian woman who's probably a good 15 years younger than I am, and we rip each other to bits all the time. The first thing she does when she introduces me to anybody I don't know is point out my bald patch on the back of my head on my crown. That's literally the first thing she will do. You know,
the one on the back of the head.
Yeah, I've got one on the back as well as on the front. I'm getting old and it's falling out rapidly, as well as going grey. But yeah, we rip each other unmercilessly. You know, I mean, we just rip each other to shit all the time. But we would do anything for each other, and I think that's part of. I don't know. I think it's all coming back to this thing that Nate said about having kind of circles of kind of people and behaviors towards them.
I think this is circling back to where I started at the beginning of this episode, and that we're completely rude assholes, but only in a joking, mocking kind of way. But we're polite where it matters. Like I am voting for people that are going to respect the LGBTQT community. I'm going to be voting for people that care about gun regulations in a way that children aren't shot up. Like that's my way of being polite. Is like, yeah, I'm rude with my mouth, but my manners care about people, or the way I act cares about people. And I think that's what I don't see with the people that put so much stock into whether or not you're being extra polite in person. Is I think that's where they have the problem, because I've met the nicest seeming people that vote on the worst things. And that's why manners only means so much to me. Like teaching your kid to act in the world and where the boundaries are within the world, that's fine. But all the arbitrary things don't matter. How they treat the world matters a lot more. So like, yeah, you need a baseline of manners, but there's other than that, it's so far down on my list of things that are important in life.
Agreed. As someone who works in construction and routinely cusses and swears at people I barely know, yeah, definitely agreed. I feel like a part of it though is just being genuine. Like that's kind of what you're getting at, is that the people who will tell you, they'll calls it like they sees it, so to speak. A lot of times they're being more genuine than the folks that try to hide behind this notion of decorum. You know what I mean?
Is
that what you're saying?
The calls it like I sees it crowd is a whole different crowd from what I'm talking about, because I don't consider myself a calls it like I sees it. There's a line that you cross where you're going from joking about something, and the calls it like I see it is like I'm just saying what I see. You just happen to be a terrible person, kind of thing.
Well,
Calling it like I
there's
see
a
it.
difference.
Anybody that says that line, and apparently you're one of those people, so you're on watching it. Anybody that says that line, they're genuinely bad people, but they might care more about the decorum and how they do it, but they definitely seem to focus more on that than being a good person.
Hey, in my defense, I'm not, a Republican. So I'm not one of those calls it like I sees it. Like, it's not like, hey, does my acting like a garbage person trigger you? I'm talking about being genuine with people and speaking plainly with people and not, you know, sort of, I don't want to say lying to their face, but pretending like you're saying, like you might come off like the abrasive asshole, but at the same time, your voting and your general character isn't really the way that you're presenting it, right?
Yeah, but I'd say it's good manners to know where to draw the line. So that's where like a lot of the calls it like I see. I wasn't calling you a Republican, but you protest too much. The calls it like I sees it people, they'll say it like they won't draw the line where it's going to hurt somebody's feelings. Like sometimes for people's own good, you got to actually hurt their feelings a little bit because they need to hear something. But if I don't see there's any reason for me to come across like a dick to somebody in a way that's going to hurt them, there's no reason for me to point out a flaw about them. And the calls it like I sees it crowd, they don't have that line.
Well, there's a difference between candor and cruelty, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. I'm not saying there isn't one of those.
I wasn't saying you were. I'm just saying the people that
I
genuinely
kind of feel like you were. Kind of feel like you were a little bit.
My bad. Do you need an apology or are you going to cry too? All right.
Never
You
gonna
play
do
that
that
character
again.
so well.
I'm sorry, Nate. I'm sorry, Nate. Okay, so yeah, all that I'm saying is like you can stop crying now. That's what I tell everybody that starts crying. Like, yeah, you got a couple
Yeah.
tears. That's all. You're allowed. You're
Yeah,
done.
are you done? Are you
Yeah.
done?
That's
Okay, bye.
I
Okay.
always talk out against toxic masculinity on the show too. So I'm being a big hypocrite right now. But is there anything else that we're missing out on this? I feel like we needed Laura to rein us in because this episode got a little out there.
I've enjoyed this episode, but that's me. I look when I'm at work, I manage depending on which site I'm at. It can be either like 20 people or it can be 100 people, and sometimes you have to say things that they don't like. Sometimes you have to give them instructions that they don't want to carry out as part of the job, and there are ways to do that. And politeness can be a good tool in doing that and getting that message across properly without getting on the person. Speaking to them rather than speaking at them. And politeness can be a real aid in that. And going back to what I said about politeness at the very start of the show, where I said, in Britain it's constant, the basics, a please and thank you. And that can go a long way when you have to give someone an instruction that they don't particularly want to carry out, and it really can. And I've been in the position where I've been managed before, and I've had people who don't use please and thank you, and you read it. My natural reaction is to kick back against that and to say, well, fuck you. But if someone comes up with the right attitude and is being polite and says, please, thank you, would you mind doing this? It goes a long way. And it really can kind of, you're not being false by doing that, but you're just changing the phrasing of the way you speak to people, which I speak like that to everybody anyway. I tend to say please and thank you. I find it goes a long way being polite. I'm not being false when I'm doing that, even though I want that person to do something for me. I'm still being myself.
That's actually a good point that we hadn't crossed, and I'm glad you brought it up. When there's a power dynamic change, you definitely need to be polite. When you're in charge of somebody, you bring in, like I have some people that are that work under me, and whenever I'm talking to them, I'm being as polite as possible because I know I've had like those arrogant a-hole bosses that don't seem to care about what they're asking of you or how rude they're asking of you. And you want to come across like, yeah, I'm teaching you something, I'm asking you to do something, but it's not something I wouldn't do myself if I was in your position. And I'm always thoughtful of how I come across when I'm telling people to do something or correcting them on something that they've done wrong.
Absolutely. I myself, I don't want to say the same thing the both of you did, but I'm gonna anyway. But I'm also in charge at my work, and I work in construction. So typically, an industry not known for its you know manners and kindness on the job site. But so I've got a guy who's recently started working for us who is a Muslim and an immigrant, and he has experienced no small amount of racism since he's been in the country. And I will be honest, I don't like him, but I find myself trying extra hard to be kind and to help the guy out, to not get upset over the language barrier, which there is a significant one. So it is a real challenge, but I find myself going like the extra mile to make this guy feel welcome and to be kind to him. And he knows I'm an atheist. He also knows that I'm gay. These are not two things that typically go down well with Muslims. But I'll tell you, this guy, having actually shown him a modicum of kindness, has responded better than most of the, white Canadian here born bred folks that I've ever met in the industry. So yeah, absolutely. I think a little kindness goes a long way.
All right. I think we're about wrapped up here. And I think we all had our final thoughts here. Richard, my memory's terrible and I forgot how we ended it again. I need that mat. I need that mouse.
I have an appropriate mat, which Laura ribs me incessantly about because I bought a mouse mat.
All right, so keep questioning, interrogate your beliefs, and stay skeptical. Thanks for coming on, Nate.
See you next time.